Hi, in this short video, I will teach you the API specifications how Mulesoft's Anypoint platform leverages them to begin building a data integration. Mainly, this will cover topics such as what is an API designer and how to create an API spec using it. What are some time-saving considerations to make when designing an API spec? And how do we test validate against our API specification in an API console? So first of all, let's discuss why we design an API spec first. The best way to get started is in building your first HTTP-based Mule data integration application is by writing an API spec. And what is an API spec? Um, an API spec An API specification is an explanation of an API's behavior, fundamental design philosophy, and supported data. So I have opened Mulesoft developers website, and let's start explaining how the things work with making a API specification, right? Um, so what we will do, I have already signed up for a free 30-day Anypoint platform account, and that is a free 30-day trial version of an enterprise edition of Mulesoft, which is a platform basically used by many big enterprises for actually getting the data from several distributed APIs all across the organization. So that Anypoint platform account I have already created, and now what we will do is I will create an API spec in the design center. And what is a design center? Design center is this URL. That's if you Google search for design center, and then it will show you um, design center on Anypoint platform. And if you just want to create your first design for API specification, you can click this button and it will take you to the relevant site where you can create an API specification while this is loading. So I have already done it. So I have already created my Mulesoft API, which I'm going to which is already there. So I'll create another API specification. So just to demonstrate in this video, so I will just give it a project name, my test API spec, something like that. And I will click on this start with API designer and click create. So here it opens my test API spec. That's it. You can see that this is on the cloud, https://anypoint.mulesoft.com/design center/ blah blah blah. And so what I will do here, I have actually gone to this, and I will follow how to design my first. I'll just get it onto the another computer just to let you know the steps. Just hang on for a minute while I search. I've done it once. Okay, select the create button, and I have done press create. Okay, so all that step is done in the previous step. Now what I will do, I will just delete. I'll keep the title, my test API spec, and I will just copy it, the code from a design spec, API spec already that's written for the learners, and I will just paste it. Alright, so I have pasted that API spec. Now let's take a look at the specification above. This is the specification, which starts by describing the overall API from the top level, right? So the specification creates a data type of product. You can see that product data type is there with its parameters and types within it. This is the product properties of the product. Below that you can find data types such as identifiers map, price, identifier maps, price, sales unit, amount, etc., etc., and more. Now these data types can be reused by referencing them throughout the RAML file. Now what's an RAML file? RAML is actually REST API modeling language. It's a modeling language for designing REST API, and there is an official RAML website which is at this one. So I'll just bring it there. So https://raml.org. So this says, the official website says, the RESTful API modeling language makes it easy to manage the whole API's lifecycle from design to sharing. And we can just try. You can design, build, test, document, share. Written once, and you can use it many times. It's so you can just download it. I think it's free. It's so we'll get back to our job. Coming back to the explanation again, what we'll do, we have got a basic API design spec here. It's telling API property already used, title at 2.1. Okay, so I will just clear one of the titles. I'll delete one of the title. It is repeated. Right, so now we have got an API summary on the right hand side. We have got a mocking service button. Now what we'll see that, if we scroll further, further down, the spec describes the endpoint /products/product ID, and what it expects from the requester, the ID content type, enumerated query parameters, as well as its responses. Now a success response of 200 outputs the data type specified in the JSON body, that's the JSON plain JavaScript object notation, along with an example of the 200 response. At the very end, there is one exception error, so there's a 404 error if the product is not found. Now, how can we test the API with the mocking service? So what we have got is, we'll just flick this button, it will flip it up. Let's wait for a second while it loads up. So mocking service is ticked. Again, what the documentation says, that to the right hand pane also includes the API console to try and a request and see the response against the specification. So hover the mouse over the right hand pane, that's the right hand pane, click the product ID, product/product ID to view the endpoint details. Okay, so we have got the endpoint details with these properties, identifiers, and then here is a get button. So get link. So, and we'll click that in a second, and we have got a get request sent to the web server, and what we'll do, we can click on try it. Enter an ID in the product field. It says click the blue try button first. Okay. And it's asking for a user request with a product ID. So let's fill an arbitrary product ID of 2, and I'll send the request and wait back for the response. So 200, okay, so I've got the response. That's great. So now I have been already able to communicate with the server and send a get a response corresponding to my request with a product ID of 2. And now how can I publish the spec for reuse? Now that the specification works without errors, let's go ahead and publish it. Now for publishing, there is the publish to the exchange. So let's go ahead and publish it. This will enable us and anyone with sufficient privileges in any point exchange to read and use it. Okay, so first we'll need to shut off the mocking services because and remove the base URI parameter. So mocking services is enabled. I'll just shut it off. So wait a second, it has been shut off, and then click on the publish to exchange button. Okay, so it all comes, everything is okay. It's a valid RAML, and then I'll click the publish button. Right, so we have got the first success. It is successfully published to exchange. Done. So in my upcoming video, I will be discussing how to create your first Mulesoft project. And okay, thank you for listening. Bye.